Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi.
How are you all? Welcome to Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi. And today we have with us my guest is Jennifer Massey. Jennifer Massey is the founder and CEO of Integra HR and a nationally respected HR strategist and speaker with more than 30 years of executive experience. Jennifer helps organizations transform their workforce culture, strengthen leadership, and navigate HR complexities with confidence. She is a certified DISC and 5 behaviors facilitator, mental health first aider, and employee assistance coaching specialist. Through Integra's Give Back and Impact program, she supports schools and nonprofits serving vulnerable communities. Jennifer is passionate about helping leaders create aha moments that move teams and organizations forward. Wow, we have a HR specialist, to say the least, amongst us today. Welcome, Jennifer.
Well, thank you for having me, Dr. Bibi. I'm so excited to be on Hivin and Vibin.
Fantastic. Jennifer, tell us something about how did you first get into the HR profession?
I actually went to college to be an HR professional. I knew very early on in my lifetime that I wanted to work with people and see how we could maximize what they can contribute. So I actually went to college at the Rochester Institute of Technology and graduated with a business management degree with some minor in psychology, and I studied labor relations.
That's what. Okay. So, um, when did you then I'll move a little backwards and ask you, how did you know that HR would be your profession, that you chose to go to school and study it?
Sure. So I would say that one of the things that I realized very young in life was I wanted to make a difference. And there were individuals as I was growing up that didn't necessarily always have that confidence in me that I would necessarily make a difference. And I got the opportunity to actually be the drum major of the marching band. And I played instruments from the time I was in third grade all the way through school. But being in that leadership role as a drum major leading the marching band, it was a profound impact on me that it gave me the confidence and also helped me to start to develop leadership skills. And when we were working together collaboratively as musicians and artists, we were able to make something pretty great, and it was nothing that one person could do. And so I knew at that moment that I wanted to see what I could do to be able to support people and really have them achieve things and great things and do that not only as individuals, but as a collective.
Aha.
Yeah,
So see there, I got my first aha moment.
there
So
you go. I love that.
so tell me something then, how did you secure the drum major role?
Sure. So I had to be proficient with my musical instruments that I was playing. I was actually a reed player, so I played clarinet and saxophone, and I had to be doing well in school. And then I tried out. And so there was not only a list, it was like an interview process, but then also had to master, right, counts of music. And they actually had me demonstrate what I might be able to do in front of a small group of musicians and leading them. So, yeah, it was an interview process, just like we would interview for a job.
Fine. And how old
Mhm.
were you at that time?
Oh my goodness. So that would have been my sophomore year of high school. So probably around 15 years old. When I graduated, I was 17. I started kindergarten when I was 4, which is a little bit younger than normal, but I'm the youngest of 4 children. And I kind of got kicked out of preschool. They said I was a little bit too advanced and I needed to go on to kindergarten. So, and that was thanks to my sisters bringing me up quite quickly. And I, um, you know, had kind of mastered some of the things that you would normally need to master in preschool.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Okay. So, then how did you decide that you would apply for this role? So which means you had to apply for the role to go through that entire selection procedure. So why did
Mhm.
you, what made you apply?
Sure. Well, I really wanted to be able to lead a group of people. And it was my opportunity to be able to do that. And it came very naturally, or it felt very natural for me to be able to do that. And so it was, I was nervous, of course, like anybody gets, right, when they're interviewing for something, but I knew it was something I wanted to do and it was something that was important to me. And I felt that it was kind of that natural progression from what I was already doing and contributing as a musician within the group.
Perfect. What I'm trying to understand is because what I get from your bio and from your what you're telling me is that you were pretty intentional from a pretty young
Yes.
age, and
Yes.
you did choose to get into that. You chose to apply for it. You chose to, and it was not something that was coincidental or it was
Mhm.
accidental or it happened because, some force of nature,
Mhm.
pushed it or made it happen or something like that. It was something that you chose. So this being intentional,
Mhm.
where else have you used it in your career?
I would say right from the very beginning of my career. So when I graduated college, we were in a recessionary period. I was very fortunate that I was hired by an alum, and I was able to work right in my field immediately. And I was very fortunate because a lot of my fellow classmates were not working in their professions. This was in the early 90s. And so I went into personnel management for a large retail organization and got transferred down to where I live now here in Albany, New York. And one of the things that I decided was I was in that position for about a year. And I was learning a lot of different things, but an opportunity came along where I could actually build an HR department because no HR department existed. It was kind of spread out amongst the leaders within that organization. And I applied for that. And although I probably had no right applying for a job where, I'm 1 year in, I had done some internships in college and things like that, but um, I really felt that this was going to be something where I could take some of my skills and abilities, but learn something new. And I've always been somebody who looked for opportunities intentionally to be outside my comfort zone, to push myself as far as I could, ask for help, certainly, but learn along the way. But I would say that that was kind of the trajectory, right? Of stepping out of that comfort zone and really being intentional about doing something that I knew nothing about. The same thing transpired several years later when I had an opportunity to consult and do consulting work. Now I'm in my 20s. And right, we don't think of consultants in their 20s, but I was working with think tank incubator programs coming out of RPI here, a local college university. And they were individuals who were graduating and they were starting high tech companies. This was the big tech boom at the time, and they were trying to IPO or get venture capitalists. And I met a great mentor who said to me, come down to Brown's Brewery on Thursday nights and meet these individuals, and they need help from an HR perspective. And I started some consulting at that time, very young in my career. So I think I've just always thought of opportunities and challenges as not obstacles or barriers, but intentional ways for me to grow and be better and contribute in ways that if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have the career that I have today. And I had great mentors along the way. That is what I will say as well.
I have a question here then on
Sure.
how do you send a message to the mentor that you want to be mentored?
Oh, that's a great question. So one of the things I think, well, I was lucky because they kind of just were there. And I would just say to them, listen, you have so much that I want to learn, right? Will you be willing to share that with me? Share your expertise, share your experiences, share the obstacles, right? Or the things that you did to try to overcome those. And it was a great gift that individuals would kind of stop and take me under their wing and say, hey, come on this ride. And it was just an opportunity to learn from some great people, but I would ask them, right? I would just say, hey, I really think that you have a lot to contribute and I would love to learn from you. And will you spend some time with me? Um, and I was committed to that, right? I lived up to my end of the bargain of, showing up and being present and listening, really, really listening and taking heed to their experiences and the advice that they gave me. And I am forever grateful for those individuals. I lost two of them in this past 2 years, have passed away, but they were incredibly impactful. And I'm so thankful that I asked them if they would be my mentor.
Okay, so let's start with your first mentor. And
Yes.
what did you learn from that
Mm,
individual? And what did how did you grow?
mm. So his name was Don. And he was an amazing individual. One of the things that he said to me, which is something that I come back to all the time, and it's something I actually share with my mentees and also my team here at Integra, is you can be the best HR practitioner. You can know all the rules, the regulations, the compliance, the best practices. But if you don't understand the business that you are working in, you will fail every time. Learn the business because you will modify how you implement rules and regulations and policies and best practices based on what that business needs. And you will be much more successful and you will be seen as a strategic partner and contributor. Best piece of advice and or guidance. And I would watch him learn the business, right? Because there were things that were changing and being modified within the high tech industry that we were in at the time. And I just watched him do that. And he would listen and he would learn. He would go to meetings. He would ask questions. He approached it from curiosity. And I do the same thing. I'm very curious with my clients. I want to understand about their culture and how they came to be and what they want those outcomes to look like, and right down to how do they produce the widget or how do they deliver the service. I want to understand those things so that I can maneuver with their business.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, get the
Hmm.
same thing.
Hmm.
What did the
Absolutely.
second mentor teach you?
Oh, so her name was Harriet, and she taught me how to remain diplomatic in really tough situations, right? And um, build credible and confidential relationships with people. And I would watch her deliver some of the toughest news to people. And she just did it with great ease, and with trust and with empathy. And I really wanted to learn those skills. And so I watched very carefully and asked for advice at times and also had her coach me. right? Where we would do some role playing about how do you deliver those conversations and how do you build that trust and credibility, and being true to, what you say and what you do need to be in alignment. And if they're not, you're not going to have those trusting relationships. Yeah. So two really amazing mentors teaching me really amazing things that I still use to this day in my career, and I'm lucky to be able to share with others.
I was about to ask you about building trust, and you picked it up. So I'll just continue with that query that I have in my head, and that is, how do you go about building trust or embedding trust in an organization, when you're
Mhm.
developing that organization?
Sure. So one of the things that I am grateful to have is my facilitation in the five behaviors of a cohesive team, which is based on one of my favorite books, which is The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And it's the pyramid, right? And the foundation of that pyramid is trust. And trust is really about vulnerability. And it doesn't mean, right, that we've got the tissues and, we're sobbing and we're sharing our deepest, darkest inner secrets. But what that vulnerability-based trust is the willingness to say, I have no clue. I made a mistake. I have a question, right? Or I wasn't able to meet my deadline, right? And ownership and being able to create an environment culturally where people can be vulnerable with one another and it's okay. It's really creating that learning environment. It's not about gotcha moments. It's about truly developing people and creating that vulnerability-based trust that allows people to be able to excel and feel comfortable.
Hmm.
And
I
teaching
like the
people the
fact.
skills to do that. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. Go
Ye-
ahead, Dr. Beebe.
No, no, please, 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 go ahead. First, you go ahead.
Sure. And I was going to say that it's like, right, it's teaching people to be vulnerable. And it can be scary, right? But sometimes it's coaching them through that. Sometimes it's having a conversation about, well, how can you deliver that message, right, with the team? It's also about spending time with people. And it's not just getting to know them from a professional perspective, it's getting to know them from a personal perspective, whether you do that through assessment tools, whether you do that through just spending time together, doing some team building, but really getting to understand how people work and how they communicate, how they can hear information, how they can receive information, how they give information. And all of those things help you to start to build vulnerability-based trust.
Right.
Mhm.
Totally agree with you. Vulnerability does very, when the first time I thought about vulnerability, because, we are, in my family, we are taught to be stoic. If you're
Mm.
facing something, you will not show your emotions to the external
Mhm.
world. You can come home and do whatever
Mhm.
you want, but when you're outside, no one should see what's the storm inside you. And
Mhm.
that's where, when I first did it, I did it very instinctively, showing my
Mm.
vulnerability. And I
Okay.
did it very without even thinking about,
Mhm.
that fact that I was doing that.
Mm.
And that led to building a team which
Mhm.
has kept in touch with each other even now. We are now almost 20 years, 24 years away from each other. We have gone on our different ways, but we
Mhm.
still meet, but we still catch up. We still
Sure.
seek each other out, and we still want to
Mhm.
be, like, how are you? Where are you? Are you doing fine? That kind of a thing.
Mhm.
But we're still
Mhm.
there. The core team, the first team that was,
Mhm.
that I
Mhm.
built around me,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
team. So I think,
Mhm.
yes, that is so. And for me, it has been more instinctive,
Mm.
that when I see something happening, this is what I need to do, and pick it up and
Mhm.
do it, whether learn
Mhm.
or train,
Mhm.
whatever. Okay, so
Absolutely.
what made you choose DISC to certify in DISC?
Mm. So I took my first DISC assessment in 1989. It was paper and pencil. You filled in the little bubbles, sent it off, and it came back like 6 to 8 weeks later, right? And it is an assessment that actually is valid and reliable. And one of the things that people will notice when they take DISC is that oftentimes you might have a minor shift in your styles and your tendencies or your preferences, but you won't have major shifts. You're not going to go to the opposite side of the circle, right? Now you could have a priority on the opposite side of the circle, something, right, that is an additional priority for you. But I liked the reliability and the validity of it. I also liked the fact that these are styles and preferences. It doesn't mean, right? I love this assessment because you can have all four of the styles and tendencies, right? It's what motivates you, maybe more so than other styles, and what, right, might stress you out more than others. But I like the fact that it's not a labeling, right? And that you can maneuver into those other quadrants as, right, you need to do your work and how you show up. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to become certified in it. I use it as a tool in my coaching, but also in my leadership and with the team and also a lot of our clients because of those factors.
And 5 behaviors, why did you choose that?
Oh, I love Five Behaviors. I have been a Patrick Lencioni fan. Again, it's one of my favorite books. I have been a fan of that book since probably around, I would say like 2007, 2008. And I brought it into my first organization around 2009, 2010 timeframe and started teaching the concepts of the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Now it's the positive switch on that is the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. But I really feel like when you um, build that pyramid, you will get to a collective result that you wouldn't if you're not building the foundation of trust, right? Productive conflict, commitment, accountability, and ultimately results, which is what all teams and organizations want, is a collective result, not an ego-driven result. And so again, I feel like this is work that is very important for organizations when they're trying to build people-based cultures and get the most out of those individuals. First of all, understanding communications and styles and preferences, and then how do you collectively get teams within organizations to be extremely high functioning?
Lovely.
So that's why, yeah.
Lovely. I just having used both DISC and 5 behaviors, I sort of align with what you're saying and how you go about it. Uh, Tell me, why did you decide to start Integra?
Oh my goodness. So as
Start
I
from the
mentioned,
beginning, right from the beginning, when it first
right from the
struck you and all that.
So, well, actually, I had said in my application for a scholarship when I was getting ready to go to school, one of the goals that I had in there was not only to graduate from college and go into the field of human resources and people, I wanted to own my own company. And so in my 20s, as I mentioned, I became a consultant, but I was a sole proprietor. I was doing that as I was having my kids when I first started having children. I kind of gave that up. I went back internally because my husband decided to make a career change. And so I wanted to support him. I kept some clients on the side and people would always call me and I did a little dabbling in the consulting world. Went through an entrepreneurial boot camp in the 2010 timeframe. And I was going to try to go back out and I was going to start the company then. And I did it for about 6 weeks. Took one of my first arrangements, which was to go in and do a strategic plan for an HR team for a really great large nonprofit that was a statewide across the New York State. And I never left. They talked me into staying, and so I didn't go out at that time. And I feel like timing is everything. And then in 2019, I was working for a different nonprofit, a great organization with great people. And I just wasn't feeling it anymore as far as being an internal leader. I really wanted to impact more organizations than just one at a time. And I really felt like now is the time for me to go out and actually start the company. And so I did in 2019, and it was an aha moment for me. It was kind of like, and it was nothing to do with the organization, nothing to do with the great members of the team that I was leading and that I was part of. It was really more about me fulfilling myself. And what did I want to kind of see this next piece of my career be? And I always wanted to fulfill that dream of owning my own company, not as a sole proprietor, but actually leading a team and building a culture of my own and working with a lot of different clients to be able to make really great impact.
I love the fact that you said building a culture of my own. That is
Mm,
such a big driver. Even I think for all HR
mhm,
professionals, I think that is a very big driver to build a culture
mhm,
that is very akin to what you want. So
mhm.
true, so true. Um, let's talk about why did you choose the nonprofits serving vulnerable communities? Why
So
this particular sector of nonprofits?
sure. So I grew up in poverty, right? My parents were divorced. We were a house of domestic violence. It's not something I talk about. And my mom, after 25 years of marriage, had no choice but to leave my dad. And she put my sisters and I through school through a lot of sacrifice. And one of the things that my mother always said to me, and she's one of my biggest cheerleaders, she's also one of my biggest icons, which is there's always someone else that is in a worse situation than you. And she taught us about giving back and being part of a community and that we support community and we do for others um, as part of that process. And so I've always been taught that from a very, very early age. And it was something that was very important to me. And nonprofits work with lack of resources, right? Lack of funding, oftentimes. It's difficult work. You don't go into nonprofits to become wealthy. You do it because you're mission driven. And these individuals that do this work, to me, are awe-inspiring. They're doing really hard work without a lot, and they do and impact people's lives incredibly. And if it wasn't for this work, our communities would not be able, and individuals would not be able to survive in some situations. And so for me, giving back and creating the give back and impact portion of our company was really important to me. And we developed that during COVID. And we basically started donating some of our services, but then we also started doing food drives and protective gear, right? And trying to get cleaning supplies and different things. And then also supporting direct care workers that were working in residential facilities that were not able to go home because they may have contracted COVID. We had some clients where some employees were in locations and away from their families, sometimes for 60 days or more, because they were being quarantined in care. And so these are the kinds of individuals that are so dedicated to helping others that, you know, they're sacrificing their families and their time. And it's really important work. And so very passionate about that. More than half of our clients are nonprofits. I spent a third of my career in nonprofits, and I'll continue to do that work. I'm on several boards, nonprofit boards, because if we don't do it, who's going to? Right?
It's not. I've just lost my words because I'm thinking in my head there are so many feelings that's getting conjured while you're talking, and that is uh, you want to give back. You're very passionate about the vulnerable communities, and that comes from your deep down experiences that you have had, your personal experiences.
Mhm.
And it is so it takes a very strong person to be able to project one's own experiences onto others and then help them. This is such and it takes a lot of not only strength of mind and strength of character, but also a lot of knowledge that this is where I can help them the best.
Mhm.
I think that knowing which field or how you can help them the best. A lot of people have this feeling that, okay, I want to help them. I feel there is a lot of, but to know really well where the impact will be the best, the greatest, that is, I think, a huge strength to have in you.
Mhm. One of the things that I learned very early on, that knowledge is power. And I don't mean that from a power trip perspective, but there is an ability to do more when you have knowledge and education and an understanding. Because I can't be all knowing, but I can approach it and I can be an active listener and I can learn. And once I know that, then I can start to connect the dots, right? Of who in my network, or where might that resource be, or where might that information be. And I call it like system navigation, right? And it's connecting networks and people and navigating systems that can be very complex and very disheartening and very discouraging. And I have been one that if you told me I couldn't do it, I was going to figure out a way to make it happen, right? I was that obstinate child, right? Where I was like, nope, you can't do that. And I was like, oh no, I think I can, right? Right? Or I know I can. And I was going to push against those barriers. And what I'm trying to do in my life is to leave this world better than what it is, but to remove as many obstacles and barriers for as many people as I can. Whether that be through the professional development, right, and internal, whether that be through policy, whatever those things are, doing that to make great organizations where people can really thrive, right? And that we don't get stuck and hung up on obstacles and barriers, but how do we get rid of them so that people can be their ultimate best, whether that's in a company or in the community.
So from here, the next thing uh, that really comes to my mind is asking you on what were those learnings that you took with you as a HR professional from your personal life?
Mm. Oh my goodness. So, this is what I would say to any HR professional. There was a poem that my mother used to send to me when I would get at kind of the end of my rope. I would be overwhelmed. I would be frustrated. I would be like, I can't do this anymore. And we all get like that as HR practitioners, right? It's kind of like, I've got this obstacle, this regulation, this employee relations issue, whatever. But that poem is called Don't Quit. And there's a debate on who actually wrote the poem, Don't Quit. Some of them say it was Edgar Guest, but some say it was anonymous, but there is a debate about that. But the premise of Don't Quit is oftentimes we get to that threshold of I can't do this anymore, but we're on the precipice of actually being very successful and succeeding. And oftentimes when we can persevere and push through this regulation, that policy, that employee, right, that senior leader who's not buying into, right, what needs to be done, don't quit. Stay the course. Now you might need to maneuver, right, or slightly tweak it, or figure out ways to engage or embrace those things, or put those things to rest, but don't give up, right? Just stay the course, and you will be amazed at what you can do. And I feel like it's when it's at the highest, right? It's at the top of your like throat, right? And you're like, I can't do this anymore, which is oftentimes when you're going to have a breakthrough. Something will present itself and allow you to be able to do what it is that you need to do. So I would say that's like one of those teachings where I had it from like the personal perspective, right? But it's translated into my HR work, and the HR work is like translated into my personal, and I've seen it time and time again.
So then what's the legacy that are you building a legacy? And what is that legacy?
So my legacy is to be the change that I see in the world. And my goal, as I mentioned before, is I want to leave this world in a better place um, than when I started in it. And whether that's through relationships, right? Whether that's through client work, whether that's facilitating learning and development, whether that's through mentorship, whether that's through coaching. My goal is hopefully that I'm making a positive impact, right? And making things better or making improvement, or helping an organization or individuals change direction if they need to ultimately get to the outcome of where they want to be. But that is my legacy, and hopes that my children will say, I left them in a better spot, right? And I left the world in a better spot. Or my clients or my friends or my spouse say that.
So you follow Gandhi's saying, be the change you want to see in the world yourself. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I see a lot of work in you. I see a lot of intention in you, and I see a lot of uh, purposeful, absolute purposeful, how do I put it? A purpose-driven
Mhm.
career and a life. I see
Mhm.
someone who, how do you keep yourself strong? How do you keep yourself, how do you
Mhm.
sustain your energy?
Sure. Well, I'm not so good at it sometimes. I'm not, right? I work long hours, sometimes 7 days a week. Um, One of the things that I do is I work with an executive coach. I also work with a health coach, that will remind me that I need to take breaks, right? That quieting the mind is important. I have some of my most um, calming yet inspiring or invigorating ideas when I'm not actually at the office, when I'm taking that walk, or when I'm in, my favorite place in the world, which is Drake's Island Beach in Maine. But it's quieting my mind, but reminding myself that I am human too. And it's okay to say no, because I sometimes will say yes, and that's not always okay. It is okay to say no, and knowing when to do that. So I think it's through making sure that I'm working with my coaches at times when I need them, and reminding myself it's okay to be human, take those breaks and slow down sometimes, right? Slow down to go fast.
You go down to a beach in Maine.
I do. My favorite
Describe it
place
for
in the
us
world.
so that those who are not
My
from that nick of the world will be able to visualize you in it at least.
Sure. So, Drake's Island Beach in Maine is actually an island. People don't realize it's there. It's in the Wells Algonquin area, so the southern coast of Maine. My husband and I honeymooned in that area 32 years ago. And the beach it's a long stretch of beach. It is actually a wildlife preserve surrounds it. So you take one road in, um, and it's mostly homes, and people rent out those homes, and we've been renting there for years. We take our children there. The air is fresh. The water is cold. Even in the summertime, it's not going to get warm. It's about maybe as warm as maybe 67 degrees. So it's not warm water. Um, but it's clean water and it's beautiful stretches of sand. And there's a jetty, so a big rock jetty that is there that divides Drake's Island Beach from Wells Beach. And it's calm and beautiful. The sunrises are gorgeous. It's not a busy beach because again, it's a public beach, but there's only two very small parking lots, so not a lot of people can be there. And you can't park on the streets and all of that kind of thing. You actually have to be renting property or find a parking spot in one of those two lots, and they do fill up quickly. But it is even when it's a hurricane, because we've been there during a hurricane before, it's it can be a little scary with the wind and different things like that. But there's just something about the air, and the sand and the ocean and listening to the water and the waves that it's like a rhythmic rocking, like, right? Like if you're rocking a baby to like sleep. And that's what that is for me. There's a comfort in that. It's literally, I feel like a different person when my feet hit the ground when we arrive at the house, right? And we literally have a 2-minute walk to the beach. And I feel like a different person. And I truly call it my happy place.
That's the
Mhm.
reason why I asked you, because your voice changed when you spoke about that place. And so I was curious and I wanted to know what was it that made it so special for you. And now it makes it special for me too. I have to visit that place when I
Oh,
can.
you should. Absolutely. Yes,
Uh,
you should. It's
so,
beautiful.
Jennifer, coming from there, let's ask you on. I think the last thing that I would like to ask you is you've been speaking about a lot of books. So I
Yeah.
believe that there are a few books on human resources or, which you can relate to human resources that could you share with us?
Sure. So I mentioned the 5 dysfunctions of a team. There's another book, and it's Good to Great by Jim Collins. And there's two concepts in there that are my favorite concepts. The first one is the hedgehog versus the fox. And the hedgehog, right, is about knowing what it is that you know best and sticking within what it is that you know best versus being a fox, right, which will change who it is based on, right, the circumstances. And I'm a hedgehog. Hedgehogs are my mascots. I have some hedgehogs right here in my office. Um, and the other is the level 5 leadership concept. And there's a concept in there that level 5 leaders are individuals that, again, leave organizations, and those organizations continue to be successful, not because of the leader, but because of the people and the culture that it has created in its wake, right? And there is a concept in there, and it was one that I had to learn, and most leaders do, and that's about humbleness and humility, right? So when we're young in our career, oftentimes, right, we know everything. We are the best at whatever it is that's in front of us. And yet, right, level 5 leaders have a humility and a humbleness to them and a willingness to know what it is that they don't know, but also that they don't always have to be right. And they also don't have to be recognized. And there's something really organically important about that concept that if leaders don't get that right, they're going to be making ego driven decisions, right? That are not necessarily going to be in the best interest of the organization. And they won't really truly maximize level 5 leadership and leave those organizations in a better place because they won't be able to focus, right, or be successful without the leader. So that is one of my other favorite books. I have a whole bunch of books in here. Um, but those two are ones that I just come back to time and time again, irrespective of where I've been in my career.
Jennifer, it's been enlightening talking to you. There has been so many insights and your experiences are so deep,
Mhm.
especially because this, I think, is my first human resource specialized professional that I'm speaking to. So this was amazing. I'm sure there are lots of people, if there are people who are people managers, if there are people who are in human resources, they will definitely enjoy one, this episode. And I look forward to my audience and my listeners getting in touch with you. How would you like them to connect with you?
Absolutely. And again, Dr. Beebe, thank you so much for having me here. And if I was able to impart something, I hope that people will actually learn a bit of something. But I would love to connect with people and shake the business world up just a little bit, including the HR field. But on LinkedIn is really the best way to connect with me, or certainly through our website at integra-hr.com. So please, I hope people will connect and reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions, support individuals, regardless of where they're located, anytime. It's just who I am, and I look forward to you and I staying connected, and certainly would love to connect with some of your listeners.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being part of Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi. You have been a world of wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you.